Hi, is Alan available?
Yeah, speaking.
Hey Alan, this is Chris from the Art of Dismantling interview series, calling for our scheduled interview I set up through Joe.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. Good to talk to you, mate. I'm all set up. I've got my cup of tea and everything else to hand, so fire away when you're ready.
Great. Well, first off, thanks for taking the time to talk with us. I'm very excited to include you in the series. To start out, I just wanted to give you a really brief background of the project, just to put it in the context a little bit. I've
Huh?
worked full-time in the music industry for 7 years and have been a musician myself for about 15. When I was young and still thought I could change the world, I decided to use music as a tool for activism, a passive tactic to express my beliefs and concerns, and possibly instigate change. As I got older, I got more frustrated and burnt out with the lack of impact, so I started The Art of Dismantling as a means to speak with other artists, writers, musicians, etc., who have or still do use creativity to express social, political, or environmental themes. My goals are both to selfishly re-inspire myself, but also to empower artists to read the interviews, to use their gifts to express their beliefs and personal convictions. So that's kind of the background of it.
Well,
Um,
that sounds like stuff that I'm completely in favour of, and yeah, I mean, that chimes with my own experience quite nicely, so, yeah, that sounds like a great agenda for the interview.
Great. Well, to start off, why don't we just get a real brief explanation of who you are and what you do?
Okay, well, I hope I can be brief. I'm Alan Moore, and I have managed to remain in my birthplace of Northampton for my 57 years on the planet thus far. I am probably best known for my work writing comic books, although my disenchantment with the comics industry has led me to put pretty much as much blue water as I can between myself and comics. That's not to say that I still don't enjoy working in the medium, which I do, but I have no desire to work anywhere near the industry, which I think is a vile place. I have recently been expanding into other areas that I'm interested in, which have taken a bit of a back seat when my entire life got hijacked by the American comics industry. These include a second novel that I'm working on, which is consuming a lot of my time at the moment, called Jerusalem, which is entirely about the half a square mile that I grew up in, which was originally the entirety of the town of Northampton, if you go back far enough, 1,000 years or so. And I've only just got back on to writing Jerusalem after taking about 18 months off to oversee my beautiful, courageous, but probably ultimately doomed underground magazine, Dodge and Logic, which we're going to take a break on simply because, well, we've been losing money on it. And when I say we, I mean me. And I've really loved it, every moment of it. I'm really incredibly proud of the entire venture. But we should probably have had at least a plan A. And we simply can't carry on producing Dodge and Logic to its current high standard. So we're going to take a break and have a rethink and see if there is a viable way that we can do this. And the prospects are looking pretty good. And I'm also sort of messing around with musical projects and doing a little bit of stand-up now and again. Basically spreading out and having fun in a lot of the areas that I used to play around in, back when I was a teenager, with the Northampton Arts Lab. So my career has pretty much come full circle without ever having left the spot at which I am currently standing. So that's pretty much the short answer to your question.
Great. What goals do you have with your writing? Or it sounds like you've really expanded past just writing, so let's just say art and its impact on the world.
Well, when I started out, I was, I think, 25 or thereabouts when I actually first managed to make a meagre living from writing or drawing or both. I had initially started out with the Northampton Arts Lab, which was a fantastic movement that was instigated by the great bohemian Jim Haynes, who started the Arts Lab movement in Britain by simply suggesting that there was nothing to prevent like-minded people from hiring a room once a week, from getting together, from putting out magazines, from putting on performances. And the Arts Lab movement sprang up from there. I was involved with the Northampton Arts Lab when I was 16, 17. And that was an incredible grounding because it was politicised right from the start. This was all a part of the counterculture, which was in the air at that time. And while it obviously had a lot of flaws in its execution, I still believe that that counterculture had some incredibly valid elements in it. I was expelled from school at the age of 17, probably quite deservedly. I mean, I was dealing LSD, which sort of I was aware was against the law, so I probably can't complain too much. But this did tend to put a little bit of a damper upon my future development, in that the headmaster at the school that I was at had rather taken me personally and had written letters to any of the educational establishments which I might have gone to, the art schools, the colleges, and basically told them not to actually take me on as a pupil because I would be ruinous to the moral fabric of the rest of their pupils. This also extended to being able to get a job, which even then needed a reference from your previous place of employment or your previous school. And the kind of things that I was getting were like the antimatter equivalent of references. So I'd had a series of fairly bleak jobs. I'd finally managed to get indoors out of the rain and was doing a unrewarding and fairly dull office job. And at the age of about 25, I suddenly thought I always wanted to be able to express myself through my art and to support myself with my art rather than spend my life doing something that I didn't want to do. So I decided that it would be a good time to actually make the jump. I was married, but it seemed to me that I could perhaps live on Social Security for a few months, a year, until I'd established myself as an artist or a writer, or both, because back then I still had delusions of adequacy as an artist. I quit my job at work, and I think that same morning received a phone call from my wife telling me that she was pregnant with what turned out to be our first daughter, which put me in a bit of a predicament. It did seem rather reckless to throw up a dependable, if dull, job with a baby on the way. On the other hand, if I'd waited till the baby had been born, I would probably never have had the courage to make that kind of move. So I went ahead with it. I quit my job and I worked. I did basically nothing for about a year. I did nothing very elaborately. I started lots of projects which were actually far too big to ever finish, and that was their appeal, because I knew that if I finished a project, I would have to send it in and it would have to be judged. So I was taking on projects that I was clearly never going to finish, which I think is something that a lot of people, they do that, or the equivalent of it. They would rather have the dream that they could have been somebody of importance or ability, rather than risk actually putting their dreams to the test and ending up without even the dream. And I think that is, I realised that was what I was doing. And I also realised that it was the most stupid and self-defeating thing that I could possibly do. I decided that this was all entirely in my hands, that there was no conspiracy trying to stop me from getting where I wanted. At the same time, there was no super best friends who were trying to help me to get where I wanted. It was entirely up to me. Once that little light bulb had kind of gone on inside my head, I realised that I should just do something that I thought would be appropriate, send it into somewhere. If it got rejected, do something else. And I did a fairly half-baked comic strip for possible inclusion in one of the music papers that was over here at the time, Sounds. And I got we didn't have a telephone in those days, but I got a telegram back asking me to get in touch and saying that they would like to run the strip. This was the start of my career. And all it really took was me making the decision that I was responsible for my own life, for my failures and for my successes, should there be any. And taking responsibility for something, I have found, tends to give you power over it. Taking responsibility for yourself certainly gives you power over yourself. And that is the only power that really I'm politically comfortable with. Power over others is tyranny, in whatever context it occurs, whether it's within a nation or within a family. Whereas power over oneself is, I think, a necessity for being a complete human being. Okay, so I managed to strike it lucky and was making, with the addition of another 5-panel gag strip in a local paper, I was making about £45 a week, which was probably about, $60, $70 back then. And this was about £2 more than I was drawing in benefits on the Social Security. So, £2.50, that was a narrow margin, but it made me an honest man, and I became a professional writer. But right from the very start, that of course left me with